welcome to a special Friday recording edition of the Real Collective podcast. I hope you're watching this on whatever day that you choose, because we don't force you to do anything. I'm Brendan McKeigan. With me, as always, is Sean Tasse. I still don't have a proper intro for the show, so I just say whatever I'm thinking in that moment in time. Sean, how are you?
I'm wonderful. I appreciate getting a quick glimpse into whatever is in your brain at that moment of time.
Yeah.
It's good, man. I'm good. Wait, I was away for a couple weeks. Back at it now, and feeling back into the rhythm. It's feeling good. Having I don't know. Feel like I recharged when I was at the cottage.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, feeling good. Feeling
Nice.
awesome. Yeah, I'm got a couple listings coming hit, and it's still super nice out. So we just did 2 listing videos yesterday, another one on next weekend. So a couple of real nice places hitting the ground soon in the next little while. So
Love it.
subscribe to the channel so you can see these videos before they hit.
Yeah. Get your special sneak preview.
That's right. Yeah.
At the Real Collective. What goes on behind the scenes? Because a lot of people have been asking me.
Yeah, to be an influencer. You could be an influencer, Brendan.
What's that?
You please be an influencer.
Yeah, I think I already am.
Totally. We got a hate comment on one of our YouTube videos posted. So for the Kelsey photographer that we work with, she called that, you made it. If you got someone like throwing shade at you, you're too enthusiastic in your videos. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't watch the whole video because you're too enthusiastic. So, I mean, we are very enthusiastic.
Hey, people comment. It's like, I guess that's the any publicity is good publicity.
Sure. I don't know.
It's not like you were taking a leak in a mop bucket.
Or drinking milk at a showing. There was a realtor who was fined $20,000 for going to a showing and reaching into the fridge and drinking milk straight out the carton and putting the carton back in the fridge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Right? How do you not lose your license? This is all over.
How does a realtor do that? Like, I feel like I'm not going to put past any client, anyone who goes to see a home, because sometimes they like, what are you doing? Like, it happens. Sometimes people need to use the bathroom very quickly. And even that's like very much frowned upon and shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But then to go into someone's fridge and just help yourself. Wow. Yeah. $20,000.
And it was the realtor who did it. It wasn't the client. It wasn't
it
wasn't anything like that. It was the realtor who did it. Wow.
That's got to be like not a first offense to do it that easily too. How did he get caught?
I think there were cameras inside the house.
Yeah.
I mean, and then there's all these like jokes that people are making, like, oh, that wasn't the 2% he was expecting.
Yeah, that's funny. That's a good one. That's not bad, actually. Wow. Yeah. Good for whoever reported him.
Yeah, well, I'm assuming it's the homeowners.
Yeah.
Bad for our profession.
Yes.
But yeah, man, overall doing good. How about you? How are you feeling?
Not bad. Summer's almost
we're in the middle. Done. Right in the middle of summer. We are.
Yeah, I guess.
Middle. Literally. It's like 4 weeks. 4 weeks are coming.
Yeah. Like it's not bad. Kids they're having fun. So that's nice.
Yeah.
I'm still coaching a 4-year-old soccer team. Oh man. Everyone keeps saying like, oh, there's got to be some jokes in there. And I'm like, honestly, it's just like, it's compounded. I've stopped trying to get all of the kids to participate all the time and just focus on the kids that are participating. It just happens, right? Like, kids are all different. And so sometimes you have one kid who just cries the whole time, and that's it. And they don't do anything. And then you have one kid who's just like super shy and doesn't want to do anything without their parents there. And then you have another kid who's like over anxious and like just so excited to keep going, right? Like it's cool because they all have such different personalities and it's fun, but then sometimes it's tough to wrangle them in. But I'm still really enjoying it. Like I like all the kids. And when they do participate, it's fun. And I think the kids like me.
They do. You just if they're crying or on the sidelines, you're just like hucking Timbits at them. That's the
yeah. I don't even offer Timbits to them to eat. I just bring them to whip. Why would I just huck Timbits? I like that. Is that what you did? Did you bring Timbits to soccer?
Yeah. It's Timbits soccer, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, that's true. Yeah. What did I bring?
Orange slices. Come on.
Yeah, there's been orange slices. There's been a lot of watermelon.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Let's talk about multiple representation.
Sure. Yeah, now that we're 5 minutes into the podcast. You know what? I think people want to get to know us as people and what we're into. So, and I say that not having talked to any of them to find out if that's what they want off the top of the show.
Yeah, nobody does.
So today on the show,
Thanks.
Let's get into it. We're going to talk about multiple representation because the times they are a changing. So we thought we'd talk about multiple representation, what it is now, what it's going to be, what it looks like, what are the negatives about it, what are the positives. So why don't we start it off the top?
Yeah, I guess the easiest thing to start with is what is it? So what it is right now is if you have hired a real estate agent to help you either buy or sell a house, the first thing to be clear about is you have not hired that real estate agent. You have hired the brokerage that real estate agent works for. And that brokerage is the brokerage that owes you fiduciary obligations, etc. So we've talked about fiduciary obligations. We're not going to get into what they are, but if somebody else wants to, let's say, for example, you hired the brokerage to sell your house and there's a representative of that brokerage who's working on your behalf, okay? If somebody else wants to buy your house and they've hired the same brokerage but a different representative within that brokerage, you have to agree, both parties have to agree to be in multiple representation because the thought is that both parties are being represented by the same agent, the agent being the brokerage. Super confusing. Both parties have to agree for that to happen. And even though the two agents in a brokerage our side might never have met before, you are still deemed to be in multiple representation. I have better relationships with some agents outside of our brokerage than with some agents inside of our brokerage. So it's kind of silly the way it's built. Whatever, that is what it is. I think a lot of the times it was when REBA was first formed, it wasn't built around, hey, there's going to be offices and brokerages with 400 or 500 people in them. Most offices and brokerages are going to have 10 or 12 people in them, right? I think that's the average across Ontario. So, with a brokerage like ours, we've got, I think, 18,000 people across Ontario at RE/MAX Hallmark and about 400 of them alone in Ottawa. So it's a high likelihood, just based on how many houses our brokerage sells, that if you hire us to sell your house, you're going to be in multiple representation. If you hire us to help you buy a house, you might also be in multiple representation. So that's what it is. And here's where it gets even more confusing. When you're in multiple representation, you as the client are owed fiduciary obligations from the listing agent who you've hired, and that's the person who or is working for you, but you also are owed fiduciary obligations by the buyer agent. Okay, I understand that. You are also owed fiduciary obligations by every other agent in the brokerage.
Yep.
That you've never met before.
Isn't that nuts? That's completely
right.
And that's what I explain to people is like when it's multiple representation, it's anybody from RE/MAX Hallmark. And I mean, I've never met them. They work in a different building. They work in a different side of town. Sometimes they work in a different city. Like, I owe your client what the same as you owe my client now? That's nuts. And then not only that, anyone right now, like we're sitting here doing this podcast, there's two other realtors that have a deal going on in RE/MAX Hallmark that we owe their clients unknowingly. The same.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah, and the level of service that we owe them is the highest potential level of service. So it's
Yeah.
like you always have to just be on point, right?
Yeah.
As an agent is really what it comes down to. Now they are changing how this works to designated agency as part of TRESA, which is the Trust in Real Estate Services Act. And they're changing to designated agency. What that means is that you, as the client, as the consumer, get to hire your agent, and that agent is designated to provide you with agency, not the brokerage and every other person in that brokerage, just the agent. Similar to what they've got in Vancouver. We're not going to get really into that because we haven't lived that yet, but that is where we're going, which is great. In the meantime, some people have been asking questions. Now I'm an influencer. on Everybody's been asking me. So no, on social media there were a few comments. Hey, so and so, my friend has their house listed with this brokerage, and these people came to them and wanted to buy their house. They didn't have representation, so they're also being represented by the same brokerage. There's some confusion about, hey, if someone shows up and they don't have representation, those people can choose, like the buyers who are showing up unrepresented can choose to be represented or not represented. And the sellers can say, no, we don't want to be in multiple representation, right? Everybody has to agree to that multiple representation. So the question was, what are the pros and what are the cons? And that was on that post, and it really got me thinking, okay, well, we need to break this down, because I'm trying to answer it on Facebook on my phone, and it's like
Yeah.
I'm writing like 3 paragraphs. I'm like, this is a whole like video, right?
Yeah.
So
And here we are.
that's right. And so, what are some of the either benefits or pitfalls of multiple representation? Brendan, you don't think there's any benefits?
No, I don't. I don't think there's any benefits. I think there's a perceived benefit by the average person.
Yeah.
Well, I don't even say by the average person. I think some people think there's a perceived benefit, and those are the people that call the listing agent directly and want to buy a home with the listing agent because they think they'll get the best deal that way. And we've covered it before. The commission is already set of what's being paid out by the seller. So whether you're working with the listing agent who's working for the sellers to try to get them the best price, you're going to end up paying more for that house. And then the listing agent is the one really who wins in that deal. And then it becomes sticky about, like, are they really looking out for our best interest? And as the seller, you're thinking that because they're working with the buyer. And then maybe you are like, yeah, you know what? I'll get as much as I can out of them. That's what you should be doing anyway. But yeah, I think there is a perceived benefit that they're going to save some money by going right to the listing agent. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, well, and you're right. Is the listing agent is thinking, hey, if I can bring this thing together, I get paid double, right?
Yep. Yep.
So there's definitely the risk or the potential for a conflict of interest. The conflict being between the client and the agent, right? Because the agent's doing what's in their best interest, which is to, hey, let's find a way to close the deal so that I can get paid, double what I'm used to getting paid.
Right.
That's I'm not saying that everybody does it. That's not the point that I'm trying to make, but there is the potential for it to happen, depending on the agent who's working for you. I would say in the instance of a very niche market, maybe it's a small town or maybe it's a luxury market, there might be some benefits to having a ethical, responsible, knowledgeable, experienced listing agent. They call double ending, providing multiple representation to both the buyer and the seller. I think there's a potential for it to happen. I don't think the benefit is to the buyer about money. I think the benefit is to the buyer about information. I think the listing agent will likely have more information, specifically in a niche setting, either a luxury property or something that's very specific about that property or that neighborhood or whatever it might be. I'm thinking about a few different agents, either in our office or some agents in other brokerages that work in sort of niche styles. I've done it 2 or 3 times where I've represented both the buyer and the seller, and it is absolutely a different process to work through.
Mm.
There's more potential landmines as the agent, specifically because some of the stuff we talked about already.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to the changes because, like we talked about, that's going to swap around. Maybe that's better for the second half.
Yeah, I think so. The pitfalls, of course, if you're a buyer or a seller, is exactly like you said. Like, whose best interests are being looked out for? It should be nobody's best interests are being looked out for, or both people's best interests are being looked out for equally. It's really hard when you go all the way back down to the original creation of laws. It's really hard to serve 2 masters, and that's what we're doing. We're in a service thing, right? We have a master who is our principal, our the person who we're providing agency for, and it's very hard to get it right to do both people. That's why lawyers don't represent both parties in a conflict, right? And
yeah, in court.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Your Honor, my client is both innocent and guilty.
Right. You know, how can you win? You can't. And I get that, in a small rural community where there is only one realtor, in all of, Tim,
Sure.
right. Then of course that realtor is going to double end or have multiple representation with both parties. There's too many risk factors and too little training and too little oversight from our boards that the risks outweigh the benefits, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a fair statement.
So,
yeah. All right. Well, why don't we take a quick break? And when we come back, we'll talk about what it's going to look like going forward and what are the potential benefits and maybe potential hindrances to potential clients. A lot of potential in the second half. Stick around. We'll be right back on the Real Collective Podcast.
This episode of the Real Collective Podcast is brought to you by Real Collective. Real Collective brings together best-in-class real estate agents and collective experts in the field to deliver the best possible service to our clients. We govern ourselves with honesty, open-mindedness, and compassion. With diverse skill sets, our agents are able to better serve a wide array of clients, including first-time buyers, first-time sellers, transferees, estate sales, investors, and rural, vacation, and luxury properties. Authenticity and transparency are pillars of our process, which allows us to put our clients at the center of everything we do. Our years of experience and knowledge allow us to deliver prestigious service and optimal results. If you are interested in buying or selling your home, contact us today at realcollective.ca.
Welcome back to the second half of the Real Collective Podcast. If you're having a good time, please like, subscribe, and share the channel on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, and do the same old thing with the YouTubes where you like, subscribe, and share the channel. Hit the little notification bell while Sean does a lot of extravagant body language that doesn't need to happen. You're like a Power Ranger when they're in their costumes talking like, hey, we have to get to the mountain before everyone comes.
Up on Power Rangers, man. That's sense. Makes sense.
Yeah, that is sense. All right, first half we talked about multiple rep. Second half now we're talking about what the changes are coming from TRESA and how that looks better, I think.
I think so too. So designated agency, designated representation. They've had.
What does that mean? Let's go with that.
So you will hire your agent. That agent will work for a brokerage. You're only the only people in that brokerage who owe you fiduciary obligation is your designated agent, right? Someone else will come along and want to buy your house. They might have a designated agent from the same brokerage. There's not that intermingling of other people owing you fiduciary obligations. Other people in the brokerage do not owe you any fiduciary obligations. you have one person, you've got the one person who you've designated to be your agent, and they work wherever they work at whatever brokerage they work at. That's it. It's one straight line as opposed to a whole bunch of crisscross lines in terms of who owes what to whom.
Yeah. And if you're interested in seeing like the, I don't know, infograph of what that looks like, come talk to us. But yeah, that's what it is. You have one person taking care of you now, and that's it. So instead of what we were talking about in the first half, that's all gone now. So you hire somebody, and the expectation is that person is taking care of you from start to finish, whatever that happens to be. Buying side, selling side, you are taken care of. Now, maybe you were assigned to a realtor who has a listing that you like. So I would think at that point, where it becomes maybe a little bit of a tricky situation, you're owed to the seller. So maybe you have to have that conversation with your realtor and be like, hey, is there somebody that you can trust who can help me with this home? And if it doesn't work out, then I'll still be working with you.
Yeah. So okay. So the case that you're describing is I'm a consumer. I've hired you as my buyer's agent. You also have this other property over here listed. I want to go and buy that property, right?
Yeah.
And the agent sort of has to figure out, okay, well, how can I make that work? And we don't have all of the answers yet. So in terms of how the mechanics of that will work, we don't yet know because we haven't been told what the rules and regs will be. But my guess is you will either have someone who needs to, and maybe it's the broker of record in that particular instance, who needs to represent the person in negotiations when they get to the point of saying, okay, well, here's what I want to do. Thankfully, with our team, we've got enough people that if we ever get into that situation, we've sort of built in a solution to it, right? With having someone else being able to cover each other off, which is great. Being a single agent might be a little bit tricky, but again, that's why there is a broker of record. I think you might see more teams formed moving forward, or at least partnerships or pairings, just to make sure that things like that get covered. That's a potential pitfall moving forward. But I mean, again, it's very, very rare for an agent to have a buyer client who's also interested in one of their listings, right?
Yeah, and that's it, right? Like you can take someone and 9 times out of 10, that's not the right fit for them anyway. So it's not usually an issue, but if it does, I think that's what it is. You just kind of hand it off, and maybe there's a referral fee there, so it's not like you're losing out. But at the end of the day, I think it is better for a client and a person that's buying a home, and that's the more important thing anyway.
Yeah, I think it's better for the consumer. I think it's going to be.
That's what it's supposed to be, right? Like this is supposed to benefit the consumer, not us. Which good.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a lot of people who are going to not agents but consumers who are going to be confused at first.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, this isn't how it has been in the past. Why do I have to sign this piece of paper? Why can you only show me a house if you're my realtor? I mean, that's not what we're talking about, but that's another part of what's coming out in terms of TRESA. You can't randomly go and show a house to a client, to a consumer who's not a client, right? That's the other one. Consumers will have to choose whether they want to be represented or not. There's no gray area. Either you are a client or you are not. And if you are not a client, I cannot show you a house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And how it gets even more confusing is I can't show you a house unless it's mine. And I'm doing it for the furtherance of selling the house.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's like, well, now how does that work? Right. If I'm the designated agent of the listing agent and I'm showing you the house, but I'm not your designated agent, you're just a free radical.
Yeah.
It's
I think it's going to impact investors the most because they don't want to sign BRAs, buyer representation agreements. So sometimes they're very hesitant about that. So I think now is the time to be telling them what's coming and to expect that kind of paperwork for these showings. They're going to have to do it. And I think this is one of those things that take the investors out of it that I think also benefits the realtors. and helps make sure that people are protected, because having someone taking care of you at the showing is good, because otherwise we're working for the sellers. Like, we don't owe you anything, right? Like we don't. You're just some person off the street and we verified your ID and that's it. Like, I don't like doing that. I like to have some sort of relationship. I like to have a talk about the buying process beforehand and find out what you're doing and where you're coming from, as opposed to just, hey, I saw some pretty pictures. Can I go see it? And I think that happens far too often with people. And I know that there's been times where I'll turn down people for showings because I know they're not really interested. They're just out there.
I always, I prefer to work with people who are clients. I think everybody that I work with is, I work with them as clients. Since I started, I wouldn't show a house to someone unless they first came into the office, sat down with me and talked about their real estate needs to see if I could help. And it served me well. Some people get very upset about it. Hey, how come you won't just show me the house? Just show me the house, show me the house, show me the house. It's not conducive to doing business well, because then you turn into a salesperson at the house. I don't want to be a salesperson. I want to be an advocate. I want to be an agent. I want to work for the people that I'm working with.
Yeah.
I see a lot more paperwork that is signed because it has to be, which is specific to the property, where it's like, yeah, I'll show you this property, but before you see the property, you have to sign this piece of paper. Okay, fine, I'll sign the piece of paper. And it's all sort of on a one-off basis, again, which isn't great for the consumer. I think the best thing to do is to find an awesome agent who is looking out for your best interests and is a great person. A few times here and there they're going to get something wrong. It's not going to be perfect, but all in all, if they're a good person and they're working and they're trying to do the best that they can for you as the principal, then it's all good, right?
Sure. Yeah, and at the end of the day, why would you not want someone who's looking out for you?
Professional.
So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just somebody. My dad's been helping me. Oh, okay.
Okay, Dad, way to go.
Yeah, good work, Dad. You did it.
Woohoo, gold star.
Yeah.
So I mean, what's going to happen, we don't have all of the answers. We have a good idea of what's going to happen in terms of designated agency. Looking forward to it. If you want to dig deeper into how all of that works, that's how they are operating in British Columbia right now, where they do have designated agents. And a few questions are, oh, well, does that mean you can only be a listing agent or only be a buyer agent? No, you can work with both buyers and sellers. It's just have to overcome the challenges that we were talking about before, right?
Yeah, so there you go. That's I don't know what else to add to this that's not just for the sake of talking, to hear myself talk. So I hope that helps shed some light on it. So I think if you do have questions, put them in the comments below. Hopefully positive, but if you're putting in the negative ones, thanks for watching until the very end of the video. Yeah. And I'm sorry that your life is sad. Oh, the YouTube comment section. Good to be here. So why don't we wrap things up? If you do have questions, Calendly links are below. And as we wrap it up, again, like, subscribe, and share the channel. Hit the little notification bell, all that kind of fun stuff. That would be fantastic. Find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So this has been the Real Collective talking about multiple representation. I'm Brendan McKeigan. This is Sean Tasse. And until then, keep it real.
Collective.